All right. You guys are super welcome to today. Right. So we're going to pick off from where we stopped in our last class. And for today, we'll be working on a super component, and that component is going to be delete. So at the moment, we can add content here. So I can add Shola and hit. We can see Shola being added, and this is the endpoint that we've hit on all the hitters, right? And of course, I would want to see this, right? So we can see that 4 items has been added. I can add more, right? Yeah, so this is basically it, right? And that's super good, right? So something else we can do is to sort of like rework on this UI so that we can have the maybe delete button, maybe edit and delete button, right? So we can just have it here. So let's begin with that. So what we would do now, so let me just reduce this and try and create more space here. So what we can do now is to come around this area, right, and add that, right? So let me just create a div, right, and okay, so inside here we would have the button tag. So this is going to be edit. All right, and I can just duplicate this down one is going to be delete. Okay, so that's good. If I should refresh, we would see something. So why didn't I see that update? So let me refresh again. Right, so we'll see this, right? So we would want these edits to be on the same line with the name, right? So let's come here first. Okay, this is fine. So this is where we would need to be at. So I'm just going to come here and say class, right, to be equals to this, and inside here, so let me put out this again. So I would just come here and say flex. So if I should save and just refresh, yeah, this is what we're saying. Not good. So to fix this shouldn't be here, but then let's see. Okay, that's this shouldn't be here. So what I'm going to do is to put these guys into a div tag, right? So that a div is going to hold, or a container is going to hold these two. Then from there I can now sort of like apply that flex on it, right? So let's quickly do that now. So I'll just call a div tag, and these guys, these two, put it in here so that I can pass in that. I can pass in class name. So I originally used a flex, right? So if I should save on these, right, so exactly this is what I want. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is on this tag here, this p tag to be precise, right? So I'm going to come here and say class, and let's use a width of, let's say 200, right? 200 px. So if I should save that and refresh, we would see this guy being pushed here. So that makes better sense, right? Okay, so one thing I would want to do is, let me try it out. So I would want the text to be xn, so that it's small. It has a way of or rather, let's have the, okay, no problem, I think it's fine. So that's fine. So let's just come into our button and work on it. So let me do class here, and the text is going to be xx, right? And let's have a py of 2 and a px of maybe 6. Then let's do what else should we do? So let's do a border of, let me just do a border, then create a rounded of MZ, and I can do a border of gray, and that should be maybe like 300, right? So if I save this, and if we should refresh here, we're going to see something like this, but you can see that they are touching themselves, right? First of all, this is not bad. Then this is what we need to work on. So for us to work on that, this is where we need to be at, right? So I'm just going to do maybe empty of let's try 2 and save that. If I should save that, we would see a space, right? So that's not bad. Now if you look at this guy, I don't know, but I feel like it's not at the center, right? So since we're here, I'm just going to do items to be center, right? So save that. If we should view that, you can see there's an adjustment, right? So that's good. Rather than this empty, right? So let me just do my. Then let's have a border radius, and let's do border gray of maybe 200. To save that, if we should refresh, we see this line. So rather than the border being everywhere, so let me just do -C, right? So it would just be up, right? So we won't have it everywhere. So if I should save, we see this. Okay, so then I can now do a py of maybe 2, right? So save this, refresh, and we'll get this. Now since I've done py, then there won't be need for me to do this my. So let me just do empty here. So rather than my empty, so if we should save this and refresh, I kind of like, okay, so not bad. Then let me do p4. I think p4 would make better sense, right? Not on the edit, right? So let's see, what do we have there for p2? So this is what I mean with this point here. So p4, save that, and let's refresh. Yeah, so this looks a bit better, right? Does it? Anyway, let's just stay with that, right? Okay, so everything we did here, that's the same I would want for this delete button. But then for the delete button, we can just say, oh, this should be red, right? So if I should refresh, we'd see something like this. So that makes better sense, right? So we know that this would be for delete and this would be for edit. So one last thing I'll just want to do is just to change the text, right, to be 500, the text color. So if we should save that, we have this. So this looks more better, right? And I think it is, right? It looks much more better. All right, so now that we have this is good. If I want to refresh the server, let's just restart the server. So if I should save here again, come here and save, what you're just going to see 3, which are the 3 default lists, as against right now that we'll work on, we can see 5, right? So yeah, that's it. So we can see this. So this seems very good, and this is the UI. But observe what's going to happen, right? The moment I try to add into this, right? So let's just observe that, right? So if I do Shola here and I hit here, boom, my UI is being destroyed, right? So it's starting all over again, right? And that's not something we would want, right? So in order for us to fix this, right, we need to come down to the end where we have our script, which is at this point here, right? And this is the point where we are adding elements, right? So we remember that we first of all empty the DOM, then we now add elements incrementally, right, into the DOM, right, which is this, right? And if you look here, there is no CSS, right? It's just a p tag we're adding, and it kind of like lists up everything, right? So that's where you guys can observe that change is coming on, right? So what we need to do is to fix this area. So I think the best thing we should do, right, is for us to sort of like do an update on the UI interface, right? Then from there we can now pick up and work on, right? So what we'll do here is I'm going to create a function, right? So let's just do something like let's call function, and I'm going to call it, let's say UI update also. So let's say UI underscore update, right? Oops. So UI underscore update. Okay. Now these are UI updates, right? It's going to take in the list, right? This list, right? So that's what it's going to take. So we're going to pass an argument, right? So let me just call this maybe list, right? Or wherever we want to name it, right? So let it just enter there. So that's what we want, right? So we have that, right? And so the very first thing is for us to come and target. Remember that it is this list we want to have inside there, right? So the very first thing is for us to target this guy. So what I'm going to do now, I think I should just collapse this so that I can easily have access here. So what I can do now is to say let's say list container or list name or something, right? So let me just say list names. I think list names will be better. So inside there, remember it's going to be document dot get elements, right, by ID, and the ID name is actually list, right? So that's good. Now I would want to, I think maybe when we get there we'll do that, right? So the next thing I would want to do now is for us to run this our iteration. Where is it again? So let me open here up. So run this iteration, right? So let me just copy this, run this iteration inside this list here, right? So that's what we're going to do. So if I should come here and drop what I copied, remember it is this iteration which we did here. So if I should now remove this, remember I've already copied it, so let me just comment it for those that would want to follow through. Then rather than what I have here, I'm going to pass in this UI underscore update. But then remember that this is going to take a list, and for us the list is going to be el dot data, right, which is this sort of like an array to be precise, right? So that's what we're going to pass here. So if I should save, we relatively isn't going to see anything different, right? So let's observe the same thing we had here. That's the same thing we're going to have. So let me just save here, right? Remember, this is our UI. Remember, we've not touched what the updated UI is going to be like. So if I should come here and say we're adding Sunday, right? And I hit enter. Oops, this is even worse off, right? Because it kind of like empty the list, right? And we ain't getting anything here. So that's super cool. But then if I should refresh, we would see Sunday as in added here. All right. So that's not bad, right? But that's an indicator that kind of like we're close to what we want, right? So let's quickly look at, why is there an error here, right? Let's look at that. So the two things we would want to fix to that, right, is all right. So let's look at that, and let me just reduce here so that I would have more space for this, right? Okay, so let's see why. So if I had, let's say I had Akin here, and I hit on that for getting a crash, right? So let's see why. Let's look at this closely. So remember that we just copied here and then we drop it in here. So there are certain things we need to change, right? So for example, this guy enters here, but when it comes here, remember that we're using a list. So there's nothing like el.data here. So what we should have here should be a list, right? So that's one fix. And remember again, this list contents we had here, remember we define it here, but here it's not defined, right? So for here, we're using it as list name. So let me copy that and put it here. Yeah, so I think everything should be fine here. So let me just refresh here. Could have this. So for here now, I'm going to say, let's just say Shola 2, right? Let's say Shola 2, and we hit this. Yeah. So you can see what we're saying here, we're not getting a refined UI. And the reason for that is because here we're just calling a p tag, and that p tag, remember, it's originally what we had here, but this time around we've retouched this to be like this. So we're going to do some few things in order to properly arrange this guy, right, so that our UI would match, right? So that's key. Now we're going to focus on that. So let's quickly look at that, right? So where would want to touch, or where would want to um, put in some level of impact is around here. So if you look here, we're creating a p tag, right? So we would change that. Why are about this place here? Yeah, you can see that we are wrapping this with a div tag, no more just a p tag, which we originally had. So at this point here, I'm not going to use a p tag, I'm going to use a div tag, right? So that helps us to say, oh, we've created this here. So let's bring this down because we're going to write some more code around here. Right, so let me just do this. Okay, so what we're going to do, this div tag, which will, and I think just for name consistency, right, so that it helps the flow of what we'll be working on, I think I should just rename this guy to be div, right, so that it matches with the tag we're creating, right? So let's just do that. So I'll just call this div so that my code doesn't break, right? It's still the same way. So now that div, I'm going to say div dot, I'm going to target the class name, right? So if you remember on this div tag here, let me close this again. On this div tag here, we have we have this class name, right? So this class, right? So this is the content which we have inside there, right? So let me just copy this for now. Let me just copy this because definitely I would want to use it. So let me just copy it. So we're going to do a lot of copy from the code so that nothing break. We have a consistent UI with what we've already designed, right? So inside there now, which is this. So I'm just going to say equals to and put in these, right? So that is the class name that is going to take, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to do, which wouldn't be too different from what we just did here, is for me to call this div again. Now, this time around, I want to set attributes, right? So let's just do a set attribute, and I'm going to do something. So I'll target the index, the data index, right? And definitely it's going to be like index, right? So this index is this. So what we're trying to do is, remember that there are a series of iteration that goes in here. So what I'm doing is I'm targeting. So if the index for this is going to be 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So the index is going to be 6, this index is going to be 1, this index is going to be 2, this index is going to be 0. So it is that index, right, I am targeting. So inside there, now, let me come in here. So now I want to target the inner HTML, right, so that I can do some changes there, right? So I'm going to say that would be equals to, remember this is still a backtick which allow me to break line and add other level of text inside there. So inside there, so let me come in here. So inside this are div tag, right? So I'm targeting the inner HTML, and these are the inner HTML that exist inside this div tag, right? All of these down to this point, right? So the first one is the p tag, right? So I'm going to, in fact, let me just copy what I have here and come down here again, and inside here I'll just paste this, right? So what this does is sort of like help us to have um, the same stuff, right? Everything, right? So it sort of like maintain what we have here, right? So let me just save this, right? And I think everything should be fine. Yeah, I think everything should be fine. So let me refresh here and let's see what would have. So we have all of these, right? In fact, let me refresh the server so that we can start afresh all over again. So the moment it refreshes, we would see what we have. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, so we have this. So now let's call this name Shola and hit enter. Okay, so we're missing our button, but then you can see to a very large extent it still maintain what we want, right? So it still maintain what we want, and that's not too bad. Yeah, so this is good. Now let's ensure that we can see our button. Okay, so for that to work, we don't need this part here, right? Because what this part is doing, so remember that this is just the item names, which are these names, right? So we're filling that div with these item names, right? Which are these names, and that's what's happening here. So at this point, we don't need this, so I can remove that, right? So let's save and let's see what's going to happen. So if I should refresh here, so we have our Shola back. Let's add Akin. So if we had Akin here and hit submit, hula, now we'll get the buttons, but then we're not seeing the name, right? And the reason for that is because of yeah, right? So we use backtick for a reason, and the reason is we would want this item rather than what we have here. So what I'm going to do is to remove this, right, and call um, that, and that is going to be item. So we save this. Let's refresh here. So we have Akin. Now let me have it as Sunday, and if we hit enter, boom, we have this, right? So our UI is consistent and everything seems good here. So let me just add one more name and let's add the text, right? And if we hit on this hula, we have this. So that's good. Now in our next video, what we'll be implementing is the delete function, because at the moment I'm clicking on this and nothing is going away. This video is getting too long, so let's cut it here so that we can do the next. Yeah, thanks and see you in the next class.